Hi everyone, here we are on a Thursday in August, which is the period known as Garb August. So what better time to hear a sensational poem from the sensational Jenny, or read by the sensational Jenny.
Hello everybody. Yeah, the sensational Jenny is going to read The Wreck of the Hesperus. It was the schooner Hesperus that sailed the wintry sea, and the skipper had taken his little daughter to bear him company. Blue were her eyes as the fairy-flax, her cheeks like the dawn of day, and her bosom white as the hawthorn buds that ope in the month of May. The skipper, he stood beside the helm, his pipe was in his mouth, and he watched how the veering flaw did blow the smoke, now west, now south. Then up and spake an old sailor, had sailed to the Spanish main. I pray thee, put into yonder port, for I fear a hurricane. Last night the moon had a golden ring, and tonight no moon we see. The skipper, he blew a whiff from his pipe, and a scornful laugh laughed he. Colder and louder blew the wind, a gale from the northeast. The snow fell hissing in the brine, and the billows frothed like yeast. Down came the storm, and smote amain the vessel in its strength. She shuddered and paused like a frightened steed, then leapt her cable's length. Come hither, my little daughter, and do not tremble so, for I can weather the roughest gale that ever wind did blow. He wrapped her warm in his seaman's coat against the stinging blast. He cut a rope from a broken spar and bound her to the mast. "Oh, father, I hear the church bells ring. Oh, say, what may it be?" "'Tis a fog bell on a rock-bound coast." He steered for the open sea. "Oh, father, I hear the sound of guns. Oh, say, what may it be?" "Some ship in distress that cannot live on such an angry sea." "Oh, father, I see a gleaming light. Oh, say, what may it be?" But the father answered never a word. A frozen corpse was he. Lashed to the helm, all stiff and dark, with his face turned to the skies, the lantern gleamed through the gleaming snow on his fixed and glassy eyes. Then the maiden clasped her hands and prayed that saved she might be, and she thought of Christ who stilled the wave on the lake of Galilee. And fast through the midnight dark and drear, through the whistling sleet and snow, like a sheeted ghost, the vessel swept towards the reef of Norman's woe. And ever the fitful gusts between, a sound came from the land. It was the sound of the trampling surf on the rocks and the hard sea strand. The breakers were right beneath her bows. She drifted a dreary wreck, and a whooping billow swept the crew like icicles from her deck. She struck where the white and fleecy waves looked soft as carded wool, but the cruel rocks, they gored her side like the horns of an angry bull. Her rattling shrouds all sheathed in ice, with the mast went by the board. Like a vessel of glass, she stove and sank. Ho-ho, the breakers roared. At daybreak, on the bleak sea beach, a fisherman stood aghast to see the form of a maiden fair lashed close to a drifting mast. The salt sea was frozen on her breast, the salt tears in her eyes, and he saw her hair like the brown seaweed on the billows fall and rise. Such was the wreck of the Hesperus in the midnight and the snow. Christ save us all from a death like this on the reef of Norman's woe.
Indeed.
Ooh, it's giving me goosebumps. Ooh,
Vivid, isn't it?
it is vivid, yeah.
So that was written in 1839, I think.
That's about right, yes.
So
why is it a sensation poem in
I think
the Victorian sense?
I don't think it's officially that. I think I just think it's sort of it's referencing a real world disaster, more or less. So it's playing on people's fears, and as well as having a highly sensational aspect. Sorry, sentimental. That's what I meant to say.
Gosh, yeah, it is very sentimental.
So I think it's kind of, I won't say cashing in, but referencing something that people would sort of have known about, albeit slightly wrongly, and also giving it all of that sort of emotional power. So it's a bit like a disaster movie in a poem.
Yes, absolutely. But a disaster movie that all ends really badly. Unlike 60s and 70s Hollywood disaster movies that you get people bravely survive.
Yes, and it's not even, there isn't even a final girl in horror movie style, is there? It's
no,
like,
she's lashed to the drifting mast.
Yeah, and I think playing on public fears, people would have been in fear of ships sinking, I think, if they're ever going to go on one. So it's sort of gives it another.
Well, apparently
sort of
there had
frisson.
been this huge hurricane that had lashed the coast of Maine for 12 hours and taken down 20 ships with a loss of 40 lives.
Right.
And one of the ships was lost with all hands. But the ship that was lost with all hands was called it wasn't called the Hesperus, but there was also a ship called the Hesperus that was lost near Boston. So it's kind of a mash-up of those two bits of news. And a fisherman really did find a mast with a young woman dead tied to it. So he's used the real stuff. I mean, he said, it didn't take me much effort to write. He said it came to me in stanzas, not in lines, and it cost me no effort.
Oh, well,
so that's all right then. Huzzah! But yeah, my main knowledge of the Wreck of the Hesperus up until this is the first time I've ever read it all the way through is preparing for this. The mother knew bits of it, but I think she'd learnt it as people did in those days. She'd learnt it at school, so she would say that. She would say, "Tonight the moon has last night the moon had a golden ring. Tonight no moon we see." The skipper he drew a whiff from his pipe, and a scornful laugh laughed he. Ha ha! And then my other knowledge of it is from watching Anne of Green Gables, the Kevin Sullivan version, which is like my favourite television adaptation of a Canadian series of novels set on Prince Edward Island ever.
It's a crowded field.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to single one out from the mass.
Starring Megan Follows.
Yeah. Looking incredibly beautiful with her red hair. Yeah, there's a bit where she gives a dramatic recitation at the White Sands Hotel.
And he lay in his blood on the highway with a bunch of lace at his throat.
But she's preceded by this very famous woman reciting the Wreck of the Hesperus. And the reason I remember it so very, very clearly is because the woman who's reciting, when she gets to the end, she does what we used to call in acting circles, exit left elbow leading. So you put your left hand up to your forehead with the back of your hand like that, and your left elbow's pointing out to the side. And
so
then,
this Garb August business,
yeah, the Garb August
for
business.
our poetry only followers, of which there are legion,
Yeah.
it's a month of celebrating trashy fiction, trashy novels and films this year as well. Not to say bad, but looking for the sort of not terrifically literary but entertaining and commercial popular works. And I think this sort of seems to fit it's popular, and it's become a popular phrase or saying, hasn't it? Oh, I look like the wreck of the Hesperus.
There's
with the hair all blown about.
An Irish doom metal band called the Wreck of the Hesperus.
Excellent.
Which I tried to listen to, but it was a bit hard on my aged ears. But yes, I feel like the Wreck of the Hesperus this morning. Give me a cup of tea quick. That kind of thing. Yeah.
Good. I think it is entertaining.
It is immensely entertaining.
It is well done.
It's lovely to read.
Yeah, that's the...
Because you can be kind of melodramatic with it. It kind of calls for a little bit of overacting.
You give it a bit of give it some homour, as you say.
Give it some homour.
Good. Okay. Well, I think we've wrecked that Hesperus well enough.
So,
ha-ha.
The breakers roared.
Time for a whiff of pipe.
I'm going to exit left elbow leading now.
Say your farewells.
I'll say my farewells. Ta-ra a bit. I know you go. Keep out the Oss Road and come back soon.